All right, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss with the first podcast of 2025, January 1st. So make sure, again, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. So there's going to be a lot of podcasts. Going to try to make this like a regular daily show going forward throughout the offseason. Like I said, I would. Now that fantasy football's over, and if you have a league that's still competitive for this week, you really should find a new league. Because that's just ridiculous. No league should ever go beyond week 17. But like I said, going forward, we're going to begin with rehashing the season where we went wrong, analyze what we could have done better if you didn't win your league, and if you did win your league, what were some of the keys to victory there. But then also talk about some current events in sports and things of that nature, and hopefully you'll get some live streams in there as well that I could chat with all you guys. But again, make sure you're a subscriber so you're here for all of that stuff. Now today, what I wanted to start with today is take a look at the quarterback position and how it impacted the season itself. Now, in single quarterback leagues, the thinking has always been draft quarterbacks later, right? I mean, you could stock up on running backs, stock up on wide receivers, and then you come back to get your quarterback later, right? And this is a strategy that I have used extensively throughout my fantasy career. I've shared with you guys how I've always, back in the day, owned one of the three of Tony Romo, Matt Ryan, or Eli Manning, and it took me to quite a few championships along the way. But then, once the running quarterback became a thing, in conjunction with passing excellency, namely Lamar Jackson, Robert Griffin III for that short time that he came out and did his thing, and Josh Allen, of course, Jalen Hurts. The wisdom of drafting a dual threat quarterback was the way to go. But an interesting thing has happened the last couple of years. So while the running quarterback is still extremely valuable, Lamar Jackson is the number one scoring player in fantasy football through week 17, and all stats should be looked at through week 17. So don't look at through the prism of through week 18 when you go into the offseason. It has to be through week 17 because so many guys are sitting out and whatnot. But Lamar Jackson, clearly the best dual threat in the game. Now, all the numbers I'm going to be giving you are with 6 points per passing touchdown. And that's how it should be. I know some leagues do 4, but it should be 6 because it evens out the non-running quarterbacks with the running quarterbacks. If it's a 4-point passing touchdown, then it's not. Then it separates those running quarterbacks even more and makes them more valuable. So last year we saw Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, the guys who are strictly pocket passers finished as top 12 guys, Brock Purdy. And the same thing has happened this year. So here's what's interesting. Out of the top 6 scoring quarterbacks, right? In all of fantasy football, the top 6 scoring players were out of those top 6, all of them were quarterbacks. All right? And 3 of them really are not runners. Joe Burrow, who's QB2 and player 2 overall. Baker Mayfield, who's player number 4 overall. And Jared Goff, who's number 6 overall. 3 of those guys. Burrow runs a little bit, right? I mean, what does Burrow have as far as rushing yardage? He's got 202. Okay, I mean, not anything major there. As a matter of fact, Baker Mayfield has more than he does with 301. Which is actually not bad for Baker Mayfield. And Jared Goff only has 56. But, you don't need... And Sam Darnold, if you want to take this even deeper, Sam Darnold is the 8th player overall, and he obviously has been known for his... He's got 202 rushing yards. He's known for his pocket passing as well. He can run a little bit, but that's how it broke down this year. And in the 3 leagues that I was in, the eventual winner had a what you would consider a non-running quarterback. In one league, Jared Goff was the winner in the league that I participated in. In another was Baker Mayfield, which did me in the final. The one final I was in, I had to go against Mayfield and his 44 fucking points. And then Jaden Daniels was the other league winner. And Jaden Daniels was a huge league winner. That was the best draft pick I made this year was Jaden Daniels, other than Josh Jacobs. I think my 3 best picks were Josh Jacobs, Trey McBride, and Jaden Daniels, considering where I drafted them at and the production that they supplied. But, and like I said, if you go top 20, top scoring players in fantasy through week 17, 14 of them were quarterbacks, right? I mean, it goes all the way down to Justin Herbert at 20 overall. Kyler Murray was 19. Brock Purdy was number 16. A lot of that had to do with that huge finale there. I mean, Bo Nix, he was 7, 8, 9, 10. He was number 12 overall. Pat Mahomes was number 11. So the thing for next year, there's going to be a lot of temptation to take that quarterback early. I know this year I drafted a quarterback in all 3 leagues early in the 3rd round. I took Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round in one league, and that same league I also drafted Jaden Daniels, who I eventually traded. Let me take that back. In 2 of the 3 leagues I did that. In the league that I made it the furthest, I took Jaden Daniels as my first quarterback with Trevor Lawrence. Then in my friends and family, I took Jalen Hurts with Jaden Daniels. And then in one of my 2 work leagues, I took Pat Mahomes, who I also eventually traded in a deal for Jordan Love, and that didn't work out. And Jordan Love was disappointed. He didn't finish as a top 20 guy. But, I mean, even Caleb Williams was 22 overall. So the point is that you can get a top scoring quarterback in the late, not in the late, but in like the middle rounds of your draft. Next year, you're still going to be able to get Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield in the early middle rounds. Yes, we want to have that running quarterback. And here's the thing. Josh Allen is going to be the number 1 quarterback. Excuse me. It's going to be a debate. I still think it's habit. Josh Allen's going to go ahead of Lamar Jackson. But those 2 are going to be the clear top 2 guys. And then after that, number 3, it's going to be a conversation between Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. And then, Pat Mahomes, probably QB5. And then Joe Burrow probably is going to be QB6. You know what? I'll even say it now. If especially if I get Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow is going to be the guy I'm going to target. I'm going to try to think, because he's right now QB2. He's ahead of Josh Allen. He's got 443 fantasy points. Josh Allen is 435. So Joe Burrow is going to be the guy I target in the 3rd round next year. I'm telling you that right now. Hell, even Pat Mahomes, if he falls to the 3rd round, I'll take him. I know it wasn't a great season for Pat Mahomes. Like, the first half was just not good. But I certainly will be in on him next year. I'm not going to go to the well and take Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen. I just don't see myself, Lamar Jackson. You know how big of a fan I am of Lamar Jackson. And I had Jaden Daniels on 2 of my teams this year. So when you have a guy like Jaden Daniels who breaks out and supplies such unbelievable numbers, you want to try to have him. The habit is to make sure you get him again for the following season. His numbers were just insane. 25 passing touchdowns, 864 rushing yards. I mean, it's just unbelievable what he was able to do last year. But like I said, I was happy with how I drafted the quarterback position. Now, as you all know, and I'm still not over it, you could call me a sore loser. That's fair. 0 for 3 after having the first round bye in all 3 of my leagues, and I have nothing to show for it. Made 1 final, was non-competitive in all 3 of the losses. Like, it was just awful. I was in the final with Jaden Daniels. It was kind of window dressing at that point. I lost by 14, or maybe it was a little less than that. Actually, I lost by 11, but I was so far behind going into that matchup, it didn't even matter. Going into that Monday night game or Sunday night game. But 0 for 3. So, like I said, there's a lot of contemplation on my part of where I went wrong. And again, if you look at the top 20 guys in PPR, scoring-wise, 4 of them are running backs. Saquon, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Derrick Henry. All right? Only 2 of them are wide receivers. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. And let that be a lesson. A lot of people fucked up when it came to both of these guys. I know I took Amon-Ra St. Brown, number 4 overall in one of my leagues. Now listen, Amon-Ra St. Brown was still a top 20 guy. All right? He finished number 18. He scored 304 PPR points. Justin Jefferson scored 309. So you can't. I'm not going to quibble over that. But in I believe all three of my leagues, Jefferson went ahead, and on average, Jefferson went ahead of, and so did Amon-Ra over Ja'Marr Chase, because he had that contract situation that people were a little nervous about. But Ja'Marr Chase, meanwhile, goes out and puts up 377 fantasy points. He's the player number 7 overall, and he'll be the number 1 guy next year. It's very, very early, but the sweet spot for me next year, I want to be in that top, I think the top 2 or top 3. Because I want to end up with either Bijan Robinson or Ja'Marr Chase. And I screwed in one of my leagues too. I had CeeDee Lamb in 2 leagues. I had an opportunity to take Bijan Robinson, and I didn't do it. And that was a huge mistake on my part. Not because CeeDee Lamb is a bad player. He had a really good season, but once Dak Prescott went down, that was the end of it. And that's another big thing for this season. Now, I know towards the end there was a lot of running back injuries, but the prevailing theme this season was that there was a lot of wide receiver injuries. There was a lot, right? Usually it's the running backs every year that cause the chaos, but this year it was the wide receivers. And that's why the running back was such a valuable commodity this year. That was clearly the way to go. Josh Jacobs was a top 25 guy. That was the best pick. Devin Achane was a top 25 guy. I missed out on Devin Achane. It was a very frustrating finale for both of those guys, though. But Devin Achane's got 78 catches on the season. Come on. 78 catches. Josh Jacobs has got, what has he got? 15 rushing touchdowns? Something like that. It's just unbelievable. 14, excuse me. That was a great draft pick on my part. Although putting Emmanuel Wilson in during the hurry up is just ridiculous. But I'm really fairly certain I'm going to tweak my approach and go back to the running back first round situation, unless I can get Ja'Marr Chase. I want to get Jahmyr Gibbs. I want to get Bijan Robinson. Saquon just seems so risky to me. I don't know. He's going to be 27. This is a huge workload for him this year. I know he's been unbelievable. I'm a little leery of him going into next year. Same reason I was leery of Christian McCaffrey this year, and that proved to be correct. But then you look at Derrick Henry, right? No signs of slowdown from Derrick Henry. I mean, the guy is just a freak. I think we just got to chalk Derrick Henry up to being just an absolute freak. And he's player, for a guy who doesn't catch the ball, he's 17 overall in scoring. All right, Derrick Henry, 1,700 yards rushing, almost 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns. How many receptions does he have? I think he's only got 17 catches. Yeah, 17 catches for Derrick Henry. So he is completely not involved in the passing game. And listen, that's the thing too with Saquon Barkley. Barkley, 13 touchdowns on the ground, over 2,000 yards, obviously incredible. But Jalen Hurts has taken, wound up taking a decent amount of touchdowns on the ground with the tush push. All right, and that's what we were worried about there. He's got 14 touchdowns on the ground, Jalen Hurts. So that was a preseason concern. So when you factor in what the yardage was incredible. Here's the thing with Barkley. There's negatives here for next year. Injury-prone guy coming off a huge workload. His quarterback rushes for 15 touchdowns, Barkley 13. And only 33 receptions. So again, this is fantasy is changing all the time. Fantasy football is changing all the time. The one thing that hasn't changed is mobile quarterbacks don't throw to their running backs. Lamar Jackson didn't throw to Derrick Henry. 17 catches. Saquon Barkley, who caught 91 passes as a rookie with the Giants, who has incredible receiving prowess, 33 catches with the Eagles. And because Jalen Hurts doesn't throw to his running backs. Josh Allen, he doesn't throw much to his running. I mean, James Cook, for another guy who's incredibly capable catching the football, James Cook, let's see, 32 catches. And that's down for him. That's disappointing for him. So Saquon's going to probably be a fade again for me next year. Just that's three different things that are in play next year. But we'll talk about the running backs in a separate podcast. I want to stick with the quarterbacks. So there will be the temptation to draft quarterbacks early. All right. There's always that person who wants Josh Allen in the second round. Now it's going to be Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels as well. I'm going to stick to my philosophy of waiting to the third round. All right. You could still get Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff later, round 5, 6, and still have a supreme quarterback. I mean, Jared Goff's been top 12 2 years in a row now. Baker Mayfield's been top 12 overall 2 years in a row now. So there's consistency there. I still want that running aspect in there because if there's bad weather, if the passing game is being completely shut down, you still want to have that guy be able to run and salvage his day through rushing yardage. That's why, while, again, I will say that the non-running quarterback is a thing again, you still want to try to get somebody who can pick up the yardage on the ground. So I'm in on Joe Burrow, who can run a little bit. That's a guy I'm definitely going to be targeting next year. Pat Mahomes. Hey, listen. Bo Nix, 25 passing scores, 383 on the ground. I'm not, I think Bo Nix will slide further because he wasn't very highly acclaimed coming out of college. So I think Bo Nix is going to slide more than he probably should. Clearly, he's got ability. He fits well with this offense. Kyler Murray, listen, here's the thing with Kyler Murray, and I'm just going to pull up his numbers. I say this every year. The guy always fades the second half of the season. All right? So, 1, 2, 3, 4. His last 6 games, fantasy points. 10.3, 17.2, 21.9, 10, 22.3, 18. So, for your fantasy quarterback, you really want to get 20. He went above 20 twice, and he went below 15 twice. Barely competitive with 2 10-pointers there. The offense in Arizona, just was very disappointing. How Trey McBride only had 1 receiving touchdown, it just absolutely blows my mind. But yeah, Kyler Murray, who was a good value at QB 10, but Joe Burrow QB 7. But you want your guys peaking at the end, and Kyler Murray is not that. Justin Herbert peaked at the end. You want to talk about a guy who the fantasy community faded almost entirely. Justin Herbert, only 21 passing touchdowns this year, but he ran for a little bit. He was hot late. 26 and 30 his last 2 weeks in the fantasy playoffs. I still think this is a run-heavy offense, but obviously in Superflex leagues he was incredible. Very disappointed with Jordan Love this year. Let me just look at the quarterbacks. I was very, very let down by Jordan Love. I didn't like what he did this year. Caleb Williams, as a rookie, 19-6 there. He ran for 479, so there's fantasy juice there, even though the feeling when you watched Caleb Williams is that he was just very disappointing. CJ Stroud, wow, yeah. So, oh boy, there we go. I just knocked over the light. See, this is live podcast. That's what happens sometimes. All right, we're good. I got excited there because CJ Stroud just sucked ass this year. Yeah, so CJ Stroud, QB5 during the summer. Now, if you listen to any of the podcasts over the summer, you know that I said don't do it. Don't go that aggressively after CJ Stroud as QB5 because while they did bring in Stephon Diggs, while they had Nico Collins, while they had Tank Dell, they had Dalton Schultz, it was very... You always have to worry about that sophomore slump, which is a real thing because NFL defensive coordinators go to town on the film. Sometimes young players have a really difficult time responding to the defensive game plans changing from their rookie season, and they struggle. Now, I know there's been injuries. I know the offensive line has been terrible, and I think they're going to be one and done in the playoffs. I do not see the Texans winning a game in the playoffs. CJ Stroud was just bad, right? 8, 9, 10. I'm just trying to say 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. CJ Stroud is quarterback 19. He was drafted quarterback 5. He's quarterback 19. 19-12 split in touchdowns and interceptions. Like, that's just horrible. Absolutely horrible. I mean, there's just no other way to sugarcoat that. It was bad. Now, I think he'll be all right. But, you know, he even though he has the ability to do so, 233 rushing yards, he's just not much of a runner. It was a busted pick there. I mean, hell, even Aaron Rodgers finished higher than him. You know, Geno Smith wasn't great. Matthew Stafford wasn't great. Rodgers wasn't great. You know, Jordan Love was disappointing. I tell you what, though. This is the guy I'm really going to hone in on next year. And you're going to be able to get him in the middle rounds. I'm talking about Drake May. Drake May is going... It may not happen. They have the number 1 pick right now. God, they need to get Travis Hunter. They need to get any kind of game-breaking receiver they can. They might even trade the pick. Drake May is a thing, folks. And I'm going to be all in on Drake May next year as my backup. I drafted Jaden Daniels as backup in both leagues that I had him in. And then I had a supreme trade piece in one of them. I held on to him in one league. I traded him in the other. I had a major trade piece that I was able to flip him for. I think Drake May is going to be that guy. Now, 15 passing scores, 10 interceptions. There was a learning curve there. But how about, here's the key here. 421 rushing yards and 2 scores. All right? And that's in the equivalent of, 15 games. So 421 rushing yards and 2 scores. He has the fantasy juice. 11 last week was bad against the Chargers, no doubt about it. But the week before that, 21.4, 19.4, 21.4, 15.4, 21.9. So he went over 20 points 3 of the last 5 games. Drake May is going to be a thing for me next year. All right? I don't think there's any question. What do we do? Anthony Richardson. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson. So Anthony Richardson's not even on the radar fantasy-wise. And this is the other thing I said. I nailed it with the quarterbacks. Now, I totally shit the bed at wide receiver. Well, I won't say that. I meant to say running back. I shit the bed at running back drafting this year outside of Josh Jacobs, right? I just did not do a good job drafting my running backs outside of Jacobs in 2 leagues. That was why I ended up 0 for 3. But I nailed the quarterback position. I said don't go for CJ Stroud. I said go for Joe Burrow at QB7. I said Anthony Richardson, very sketchy. He's either going to win you the league or he's going to lose it for you. And he lost it for a lot of people. 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He ran for 499 and 6 scores, which is good, but he barely played. He can't stay on the field. He's a mess mechanics-wise. He has no accuracy. Listen, those years of barely playing in college, only 1 year starting for Florida, there was a lot of question marks about his accuracy, about his ability, his taking himself out of the game to catch his breath. Come on. It's not a good look. They're going to give him another year, but it was just bad. Plain bad. He has every right to improve this season. The natural talent is there. There's no question about it. But I struggle with Anthony Richardson other than as a backup. Like, I'll take him as a backup. And if it works out, great. But I'm not going near him aggressively. Trevor Lawrence, completely. I have been completely wrong on this guy from the start. I don't get it. What I will say about Trevor Lawrence, though, I think a change of scenery would do him good. If you're the Giants, if you can get the Jaguars to pay that the freight on that contract, if the Jags want to get out of this and just start over, I would take Trevor Lawrence. If you watch him, he has all the tools. He could throw the ball farther than almost anybody in the league. He can make all the throws. He has speed. He's an athlete. He has all of the ability you want from a quarterback, but something's missing. He needs a fresh start. Look at Baker Mayfield. Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Geno Smith. All of these guys have taken off in new locales after looking like colossal draft busts. And there was a really funny meme that went around. I don't know if you saw this. It was really an indictment of the Carolina Panthers organization. The heading of the meme was something like, both of these guys were in a Panthers uniform within the last, 2 or 3 years, and it was a picture of Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield in Carolina Panther uniforms standing next to each other. So if that doesn't encapsulate how bad the Carolina Panthers are as an organization, I don't know what is. But I think Trevor Lawrence can absolutely be salvaged. And speaking of the Giants, they really need to look closely at what's going on in Minnesota, because if they can maybe, because they already unbelievably won last week. And the Colts are that was an absolute disgrace. A disgrace of epic proportions by the Colts last week. To lose that game and give up that many points to Drew Lock and the Giants is just unbelievable to me, especially as a Giant fan. You had the number 1 pick, and then you go out and you win, and now you're number 4. It's just very frustrating. But J.J. McCarthy is another guy. If you need a quarterback, if the Vikings, and I think the Vikings got to re-sign Sam Darnold, then J.J. McCarthy becomes a major person of interest. This kid did it at Michigan. I know he wasn't asked to carry the offense. That was Blake Corum who was asked to do that. But I think this kid has the it factor. I think he's going to be really good, sort of a non-running Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix always had the it factor as well. I think J.J. McCarthy is worth looking into. Dak Prescott, we're done with him. Can't stay on the field. And I'm just going through the rest of the list here. Nobody else jumps out to me. So, like I said, next year in round 3, I'm going to be looking closely at Mahomes. I'm going to be looking closely at Joe Burrow. Failing to get those, even Jalen Hurts. I know he fucked me blue in the playoffs when he goes out with a concussion, and that's one of the most frustrating things in fantasy, because I think I would have won that matchup. I was in the Friends and Family League that I had won 2 years running. I know there's no way to, and it sounds like sour grapes, and it probably is, but there's no, I wish there was a way, and I know some leagues do a 2-week final. In the playoffs, when you lose a player, especially a quarterback, early in the game, there's just no way to come back from that. So you have a great season, and it gets undermined by a key injury, and there was thousands of people that had the same issue that I did, losing Jalen Hurts in the first quarter to a concussion. You can't recover from that. And that's frustrating. But that's just how it goes. Now, as far as the 2-week final is concerned, I think the 2-week final is something that has merit. We have the extra week. Fantasy used to end the regular season at the end of week 13. So now what you can do is go back to that, have a first round, a second round, and a 2-week final. I really like that 2-week final scenario because, again, it minimizes, at least to a certain degree, if you lose your quarterback or key player early in the game, it's not automatically over. You still have the following week to make up the likely deficit that you're facing. Here's the thing. Like I said, 3rd round next year, I'm not drafting a quarterback in the first rounds. I will never do that. It's just not good draft strategy. So you can have Lamar, you can have Josh Allen, you could have Jaden Daniels. Now, one of those guys falls to the 3rd round, and hell, I'm all over it. But Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, round 3. Past round 3 now. I will consider Baker Mayfield. This is a pass-first offense. Jared Goff, great season 2 years in a row. I still am a little leery of him because they run so much and he's not a good outdoors quarterback. Drake May, totally in on. I like Bo Nix as well. So those are the quarterbacks I'm looking at for next year. And let me know what you guys think. And that's the other thing, guys. So these podcasts, I'm going to try to do one every day now. I'm going to try to make this like a daily deal going forward. But I need your help with it. So what I'm also going to do, I'm going to do question and answer segments throughout, at the end of the podcast. So I'll come on, give you my spiel on what's going on in fantasy, in the sports world, whatnot, and then I'll take questions. So what I want you all to do is, I know you can post in the comments below if you want, but email me questions. All right. So it's RangerFan28. I'm a New York Rangers fan. This is a New York podcast. RangerFan28 at yahoo.com. All right. email me questions and I'll use them on here, okay? Anything. Fantasy, especially. Sports related, coaching, carousel, college football, the draft, anything. Remember, I'm big with the draft. I'm going to be doing a lot of draft stuff. And to me, I get a lot of questions on Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Like, how good are they? Well, if they came out last year, both of those guys are behind Drake May. They're behind Jaden Daniels. They're behind Caleb Williams. They're not those kind of prospects. I think they're in that Michael Penix, Bo Nix. You could make arguments there. I like them. I'm not in love with either one of those guys. I think Travis Hunter is the number one player on my draft board, and we're gonna get into that as we go on. But email me, rangerfan@yahoo.com, rangerfan@yahoo.com, the Fantasy Sports Boss. Email me your questions. I will use them on this podcast. All right? I'll print them out. I'll have them here. I'll answer them for you on here as well. And like I said, the live stream is going to try to do one a week as well, so I could chat with you guys. I apologize for not doing it as much during the season. It was like I said, I had said on a past podcast I had started a new job, so the timing, it was hard to get time to sit down and do it. But like I said, I'm going to be doing a lot of podcasting, and I would like all of you to contribute through the questions. RangerFan28, so it's RangerFan28@yahoo.com. So start sending me your questions. RangerFan28@yahoo.com, and like I said, I'll use them on here. You give me your name, hometown. That way I know where you're from. That's another thing I like to do. So give me your name and hometown so I know where you're coming from with these questions. So like if you give me a question about the Giants draft and you're from New York, I'll know your location, which is good. And let me know other things you want me to do on here. So this is for you guys. Like, I want this to be, if you want me to do fantasy baseball stuff, I'm certainly going to do the NCAA tournament. I'm always big on that. So anything else you want me to talk about, that's fine. I'm willing to do that. Last night, Penn State got it done. By the way, talking about the college football playoff, Penn State got it done over Boise State. So, listen, Penn State, the issue has always been James Franklin. Can he win the big game? Well, they have looked awesome. The quarterback, he looks really good. 31-14 over Boise State. They held the running back in check there. Aller, 3 passing touchdowns. He looked really good. Ginty, 104 yards, but only 3.5 per carry. He's going to be really good in the NFL. I think Ashton Ginty is going to be a fantasy-friendly guy that we're going to have to pay attention to. As far as his numbers this season, they were just ridiculous. 2,600 rushing yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 yards per carry, 23 catches, 138. He caught 43 balls the year before, so he can catch the football. There's some Jahmyr Gibbs here with this kid. He's the number one guy. He's going to be a first-round pick. He's coming out after his junior year. So we all love Jahmyr Gibbs. This is a Jahmyr Gibbs comp, Ashton Ginty. So that's somebody we're going to need to keep an eye on in fantasy. And that's another takeaway. And I'll talk about this more in the running back podcast, the next one. And the next podcast will be concentrated on the running backs. The rookie, you have to draft all the rookie running backs, no matter where they were drafted. All right, so Bucky Irving was one of the major pickups of the year. Just incredible production. And we knew that was coming, right? Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy Jr., these guys all came into situations where there was a pathway to getting on the field, getting snaps, being able to contribute at some point, and all three of them had dual abilities in terms of catching the ball and also running it. All right, so all three of those guys had that diverse fantasy game that we all love, especially in PPR. So next year we need to home in on those backs. Make sure we get them. I'm going to flood my bench with all these rookie running backs next year. Chase Brown was a league winner. Bucky Irving was a league winner. Tyrone Tracy to a lesser extent, but I wouldn't call him a league winner, but he was a free lottery ticket. He wasn't drafted in most leagues. Now, listen, Chase Brown was drafted late in quite a bit of leagues. So was Bucky Irving. But Tyrone Tracy Jr. was barely drafted. You know, in one league I drafted Devin Singletary. Like, I blew it with the running backs. And like I said, I'll that's where I went wrong. I had no shares of Derrick Henry. I had no shares of Saquon Barkley. I had no shares of Jahmyr Gibbs. Nothing of Bijan Robinson. Like, it was just not good. You know, it was bad. Like, I went too extreme, I think, with the fading the running backs, other than Josh Jacobs, who I took in 2 leagues. I drafted Devin Singletary to be a starter in one league. Like, yeah, that kind of bad. Like, it just wasn't good. I don't even know if I took Aaron Jones in 2 leagues. I got to stop with Aaron Jones. I really did. Javonte Williams I drafted in 2 leagues. Like, it just did. And Aaron Jones had a productive season, don't get me wrong, but this is just a passing offense all the way. And that's the thing, too, getting back to the quarterbacks. Whether it's Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy, they're going to continue to throw the football around the red zone. That's just the MO of O'Connell, the coach, Kevin O'Connell, the coach. He's just going to continue to throw it around the red zone. All right? So that's something that we're going to need to pay attention to next year. So today we have the 3 quarterfinal games for college football. I'm going to watch them, obviously. I'm curious to see what goes on here with Texas and Arizona State. So Quinn Ewers supposedly has a $6 million offer to transfer. Now, this made the rounds yesterday in the news. Quinn Ewers, a Texas quarterback, who's expected to come out and enter the draft. He's supposedly got some sort of a $6 million offer to transfer schools and start immediately somewhere else. No indication of which school it is, but this just goes to show you what a clusterfuck the NIL has become. It's ruining college basketball. It's ruining college football. They need to come up with something, whether to keep these guys in the schools for 2 years at minimum, something, because this is out of hand. You have a guy who's getting set to play a game today at 1 o'clock against Arizona State, a quarterfinal playoff matchup, who's getting a $6 million offer. First of all, that's tampering. All right? Second of all, this is where we're at now. So it's really tough. And I love college basketball more than anybody. But now you have situations where these smaller programs, all right, are developing guys, and whereas the player used to stay and prop up these Cinderella teams that we all love in the tournament, are now jumping ship in mass numbers to go to the Dukes, the Kentuckys, the Oregons, like all these big-time programs. So if you're a coach, you know, at St. Mary's, right, one of these smaller schools, St. Bonaventure, you can't keep these guys. And that's a bad thing for college basketball and college football. So Arizona State, who's vastly gone beyond expectations this season against Texas, Ohio State, Oregon. Oregon is undefeated. They've been great all year. I mean, the team speed in Oregon is just crazy. Like, they're full of track guys. It's amazing how fast this team is. Coach Day, Ohio State, kind of quieted the critics. He's a clown. I don't like him. I think he's a clown, running up the scores the way he does. I'm not a fan, so I'm hoping Oregon wins today. And then we finish up with Notre Dame and Georgia. And listen, so Beck is coming out. I think is a mistake. I think he should stay in school. But that's neither here nor there. I think Notre Dame is a real threat to win this entire thing. Now, I'm not a Notre Dame guy, the pomp and circumstance. Everybody's fair weather Notre Dame fans, Rudy and all that stuff. I'm not a Notre Dame fan, all right? But this team, this defense is unbelievable. It's legit. They have a shot to win this entire thing. I don't think there's any question about it. Like, this is a really, really good Notre Dame team. They've been on the doorstep at times, the last 15 years or so. Haven't been able to bust through. I think if Notre Dame gets to the final, it's going to be unbelievable in terms of the atmosphere, because Notre Dame fans travel, all right? It's going to be a ratings bonanza. The ratings are going to be through the roof. So I think that it would be huge for college football, huge for the program, and the ratings, television, it's going to be absolutely incredible. But let's get through today. Hopefully enjoy it. You guys can sit around today, enjoy the games, and kind of put fantasy out of your minds. The wildest story I heard in fantasy. Now, you all know Drew Lock put up 5 touchdowns. I don't even remember how many fantasy. It was over 40. It had to be over 40. And we all know Drew Lock he's just not a good. He sucks. He's not a good player. But he had one of those days that every athlete is capable of doing that makes it to the highest level. You've gotten to the highest level because you have ability. If you struggle at the highest level, badly, and Drew Lock has struggled terribly in the NFL. He can't hit he can't hit throw the ball in the pool if it's 10 feet in front of him. Sometimes it all came together against the Colts. And it was the most embarrassing performance by a team I think I've seen in recent memory. The Colts in playoff contention to lay down and lose like that, and give up that many points to the Giants, who couldn't score over 40 points over 8 games, the majority of the season. But anyway, somebody wrote to me and said that they had Pat Mahomes and Anthony Richardson. They benched Mahomes, not liking the matchup. Certainly loved the matchup against the Giants, Anthony Richardson. And I almost can understand that. Richardson, the Chiefs play on Christmas, so Mahomes is now not an option. Richardson then is hurt and not playing against the Giants, and this clearly was a deep league because this owner then picks up Drew Lock, and he goes out and has a day for the ages and wins his fantasy league. Now that is the story of the season. I don't remember who that was. I don't one of the regulars that I always am in contact with won a fantasy championship with Drew Lock. So sometimes it happens that way. Sometimes you catch ultra lightning in the bottle, and that's what happened here. That's just a great story. But anyway, all right, guys, so that's it for today. Like I said, email me, rangerfan28@yahoo.com. Questions about anything, fantasy, whatnot, I'll use it on here for the next podcast. Look for the next podcast tomorrow. Again, Happy New Year. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy those college football games today, and we will chat soon. Take care, everybody.